First up on the show, well, warring sides in Gaza as well as third-party mediators sounded notes of caution on progress towards another truce in Gaza. The developments come hours after the US President Joe Biden expressed hope that a ceasefire could be reached as early as Monday. In an interview to the NBC, Biden said Israel agreed to halt fighting in Gaza for the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which begins on March 10th. But officials from Israel, Hamas and Qatar have suggested that differences remain as negotiators work on securing an agreement. Media reports say Israel was surprised that Biden specified a date and that he used the word ceasefire. Top Hamas officials have also told media organizations that the group was unaware of any such ceasefire agreement that could be brokered by next week. Qatar, which along with the US is a key mediator in negotiations, also added caution, hinting at a different timeline that suggested by Biden. A spokesperson for the Qatari Foreign Ministry said they don't have an agreement so far. Meanwhile, the UN says over 576,000 people in the Gaza Strip, which is a quarter of the entire population, is on the verge of famine. A senior UN official warned that widespread famine could be almost inevitable without action. And from across the border, Jordan's King Abdullah joined his air force in dropping aid into the devastated Gaza Strip. King Abdullah announced that humanitarian aid to Gaza must be doubled to prevent worsening of the hunger crisis affecting over 1.2 million people. Now, people rowed boats into the sea, collecting what was believed to be airdropped aid over the waters. 4 C-138 aircraft, one belonging to the French armed forces, carried out airdrops. Jordan is urging its Western allies to lobby Israel to increase aid coming from the kingdom. The flow of aid entering Gaza from Egypt has declined dramatically in the past few weeks. Israel has maintained that it is not blocking aid. It has instead blamed the UN and the Palestinian side for delays. And well, we are keeping a close eye on all the developments in West Asia, and Jody Cohen, our correspondent from Israel, is joining us. And well, Jody, with the ceasefire deal remaining elusive, the plight of Israeli hostages and Gazan civilians needing aid appears to be becoming worse by the day. Can you tell us if there is there's a deal that could be reached anytime soon?
Yes, so Qatar has relayed Hamas's response to the latest outline of a deal. Now, despite President Biden's optimism, remember, he believed that a deal could be agreed by Monday. Hamas, Israel and Qatar have all cast doubt on that timeline. An Israeli official has expressed very cautious optimism that a deal could potentially be reached, but said that progress is slow and large gaps remain. Israel is reportedly waiting for Hamas to provide a list of the hostages who are still alive, as well as a list of which Palestinian security prisoners Hamas wants released early from prison. And Israel has suggested that once it receives the information, then talks could then potentially advance. Now, on aid, Israel has said that it has video evidence that Hamas is stealing 60% of the aid that's meant for Gazan civilians, and said that aid inspected by Israel for weapons has been waiting for days to be picked up by UN agency for the Palestinians, UNRWA. Israel's now looking for alternatives to UNRWA, which it has accused of being complicit with Hamas.
Right, and while the local elections were held, of course, in Israel on Tuesday and results are still coming in, to what extent is this being seen as a poll on Netanyahu's government?
Yes, the local elections were held on Tuesday. They're not seen so much as a litmus test for national elections, and that's because most people vote on local issues in local elections. But this one was seen as a litmus test for if a national election could be held during wartime. Now, these elections, the local elections, were held despite rockets being fired by Hezbollah into northern Israel. Voter turnout was lower than usual. It was 6.5% lower than last time. Special arrangements had been made for soldiers and the injured to be able to vote, but some communities who've been evacuated from the Gaza and northern border with Lebanon, they were not able to vote. They're holding their elections in November. And also families of the 134 hostages who are still being held captive in Gaza, they stood at polling stations across the country with photos of their loved ones to remind people that they are unable to vote as well. And meanwhile, Yair Lapid, the head of the opposition, has said that he believes that if local elections can be held during wartime, national elections can be held too. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that national elections will be held when they're next due, which is in a few years' time.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.